Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
The person you are trying to reach is not accepting calls at this time. Please try and call.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas. Catch the Free American weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Every time I think about the damage that's been done, the anger wells inside me till I'm almost overcome. I want to tear the moon out of the sky and stop the sun. Where you
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. I'm your host, I'm Clay Douglas. William Blair is my guest today, and hopefully Art George. What's the last four digits of the number for Art?
7043.
Okay, hang on a minute then. Well, I guess you're going to have to give me the whole thing. 775?
Right. 267.
Wait a minute. 267?
Yes.
Okay.
7043.
Well, that's the number I had for him. See if I can get it in.
The person you are trying to reach is not
accepting calls.
Well, it's strange, but, well, we'll just have to go with it.
All right, I will try one more time. Okay, and that's what's the last four?
7043.
I don't even have that on here. We'll try it one more time. 775. 775.
267.
267.
7043.
Oh, play.
Yay, Art! Got you here. Hang on a minute. Let's get rid of that one. Okay, I've got you now. Art?
Yeah, I was here earlier, but you guys couldn't hear me.
Nope, I couldn't hear you, but I got you now. And we got William Blair up here, folks. My guests today are with Introspect. And well, let me look and see. I think I may have one more caller here. Let me look here. Yes, matter of fact, I believe I do. Well, I'm not sure who I got here. I think that's you. All right. I was expecting we should have a 360 number calling in here. But William Blair, creator of Introspect, you had a opening statement for me today, I believe.
All right. Art, would you like to lead off with a prayer?
Yeah. Oh, digo, Baba Amma. That's a kippy kita leo. Go to gut from one now. Go to gut from one now. Kong lao. Kong lao. Well milky. Pablo. Ida. Now. Uti with the mealet. The fish. The millo. The suya share. The millo share. The mango. Big. Okay, go ahead, William.
Okay. The reason Art and I are appearing again on as a guest on your program is that we have come to a point of what we call a consistency determination, and the matters that we're dealing with, obviously in Indian country, affect everyone, and one of the very obvious reasons that Indian country is important is that they were the last bastion of a sovereignty of real flesh and blood original people. And the dialogue in the media we'll get into and talk about how the media interacts. None of this is particularly new discoveries. It's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. But the opening idea goes to collaborative governance. And by and large, the vast majority of the public don't really have any idea what collaborative governance is. And there's reasons for that. I'll read very briefly a piece of information that's taken from the intrusions case file that was modified recently. And in this, it deals with jihads. And jihads are very important to understand. The people in this country, including especially Indian country, their lives are certainly at a perilous time. The attitude ranges from, well, everything's really not that bad. We're really not hurting. There are jobs. And it goes through a dialogue, and this is an article written and put into a local energy newspaper. And essentially, when you hear the words of people speaking, they don't know. Everything's really not that bad. And when you think about what she's saying, she's a senior lady that they interviewed. It's called Side Roads. And she described something. So I did away with the date. And basically I'm describing very apathetic, very complacent, and very obedient public with functional arguments that they don't even understand what they're arguing. They don't understand agenda or issue outcomes. As I read it, I interpreted it as today, and people would agree with me if I read everything, but I'm not going to go into that much detail. But really what she's writing about, the article's entitled Growing Up in Hitler's Germany. And she goes on to say, well, you know, things really weren't that bad. So that's what's going on, and the reason these things occur, and I'm going to go into this very brief paragraph. This is about jihads, and it relates to collaborative governance. People in this country and around the world have been put into a stupor. The actuality of jihad, when you go outside of the Hegelian dialectic, which is problem, reaction, solution, include the jihads of politics, law, science, and religion. It's very important to hear these words. All of these jihads, the four basic jihads, rely on maintaining mystery. The first political jihad, political personalities, are persons of the state, and they invent policy. And sometimes they call it public trust doctrine. Policy is properly defined as a numbers racket, and it follows the prerogative of the writers. And these are things called fundamental public policy and foreign policy. And the way they get there is they use re-education, conversational hypnosis, mind control, values, and brainwashing, and many other things. And expert judgment, elicitation. The second one is law. The bar lawyers, as brothers in the bond, act as fraternal justices, especially of the Supreme Court. And they apply law arbitrary, and they interpret the law of the land. And now they're using innovative international law, UTC law, commercial law. They're enfranchised lawyers, they're admitted to practice, and they're UN authenticated. If you are not in that fraternal organization, you're considered a person of an unsound mind, and you're not given equal footing standing, e.g. Esquire, and you don't get to go on the bar court, royal court's record, and that means equity and common law. Now it's demonstrated more currently by what's called a live controversy. That means legislating from the bench. So the next scientists who pretend a lot rely on theory, also known as theo, and credulity, which is consensus reality. Consensus reality is used by the church to conduct exorcisms because it doesn't need proof of fact, it merely takes consensus. There's no proof of evidence. It's just a proof of concept. Belief in management is an example. The International Panel on Climate Change uses precautionary principles, and all acts are prohibited unless otherwise authorized. And this goes to no data analysis decision making, which is a product of the agency corporate echelon appointments partnership. Now, it's very important that the motives of the stakeholders are understood, and we're well qualified on this to substantiate what we say. Stakeholders are asset owners. Could be real estate, could be personal property, such as water and oil. And they channel benefits to provisional beneficiaries. This is out of their teachings and their institutional normative rationale. The first principle of sustainability is that science is not democratic. The fourth, obviously, religion, the high priest control religion. The Holy Roman Catholic Pope is personified as the vicar of God and arbiter of the truth. In this world history moment, collaborative governance and dispute resolution defeat the separation of powers doctrine. And the University of Oregon Law School is working very quick to perfect that abrogation of the separation of powers. This means they're co-mingling legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. Sound science, best available science, joint scientific opinion are part of the fundamental public conversational hypnosis, known as a process ideal. And the words you'll see come up are meaningful dialogue, conversation. All of these speech encodings we are well documented on, and we know how the model works. It goes everywhere. When you get into climate discussions, you're looking at all kinds of spin-offs of derivative speculation. And that's what the environmental movement is controlled by. Derivative speculation, meaning that mitigation must fail at a given rate so the money can be made. All of this is under collapsing wrongdoing to the authority of the higher cause. And it's done by planned participation at the local level, to the Supreme Court level, to the IPC panels, and so forth. Ethical trade-offs, serial warfare, plausible guilt scenarios have advanced to dangerous attitudes. So that means the elements of criminality, innocent until proven guilty, affect everybody on the planet.
Hold on just a second. We may have a caller here. I don't know. They've got a block number. They've got a block number.
It's really interesting. Play to
all right, hold on just a second, Art.
Decipher a lot of things that William's saying.
Yes, sir. Hold on just a second. Hold on just a second, Art.
Tribes
Art
are going under the assumption that this land was taken.
Art, hold on a second.
However, means it came to be lost.
All right, sir. Hold on a second, please. Art, hold on a second.
Jurisdiction.
Caller, I've got a block number here. God damn it.
Now,
can you hold on a moment, Art, or I'll take you off?
Here is the tribes are trying to educate ourselves on a position to take in this country in order to begin to thrive, or at least come out of the ashes of annihilation.
All right.
And what the confusing part is the masses that we're dealing with. I know I said this one time before, but when the states became a state, the federal government reassured the states that the Indian title was extinguished. But yet at the same time, the federal government made promises to the Indian nations that they would make sure that we had participation. Now, the federal government now is wiping its hands of their promises, the treaties to the tribes, and they're using the United Nations document of the Declaration on Indigenous Peoples' Rights to put the tribes underneath the state.
All right.
As citizens.
Art, can you hold on?
Doing this,
Art, can you hold on just...
the Indian nations are left bare and naked, because there is no resources, no assets or commerce under our wing. We have been provided for or allocated resources under the promise from the federal government. And when the federal government washes its hands of the tribes, then we have no more commerce or resources to function on.
All right.
Welfare.
Art, can you hear me?
And so using this confusion to the masses is to continue the legal plunder. And now competing over the who has control of all the commerce in the USA. And that's like William is saying, through the legal means, through the church, through the...
All right. I'm sorry, William, I could not get Art to, I could not talk to him. I've got another caller here that I want to find out if it's one of our guests, so I just had to disconnect from Art for a moment here. I don't know why he couldn't hear me. I couldn't interrupt here. I'll bring him back in just a moment here. We've got a caller here that's got a block number. Who are you, and what can we do for you? Well, evidently that block number is gone now, too. We've got, let's see if this should be Art here. Art, do I have you here, Art?
Declaration.
Okay. Still talking, Art.
Take
a breath, Art! Take a breath! Just a moment, sir!
The tribal government asked, well, what do we do? And they asked the attorneys this, and the attorneys say to the tribal government, you can't go back. You've already made deals. You've already signed contracts. You can't go back and create a form of government.
Okay, Art, can you hold on? Just take a breath here, Art.
To your people. You live under a whole new system.
All right, William, I don't know what's going on with Art here. Are you still with me? No?
Apparently you lost me there for a moment.
Well, yeah, somehow I lost you, and I just cannot talk to Art. He would not give me a chance to ask a question or bring anybody else on, so I had to disconnect with him. I don't know, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what the problem was. I've got 3 or 4 different lines open here, and we're trying to maintain them. If one of your people wants to call in here, they're supposed to dial in to the Blog Talk line, and I've got one of them on here now. All right, we've got a block number here. Speak up. Tell me who you are and who do you want to talk. Who are you? Hello. All right, block numbers do not get on. Block numbers do not get on. Goodbye. And now let me see if I can bring Art back up. Art, can you hear me now? Hello, Art, can you hear me now? Jesus. Alright, evidently that's not working. And don't know why. I'll try to bring Art back up on another line here. And my apologies to everybody concerned here. I don't know what's going on. We've got see if I've got this. right, Art. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Can you hear me now, Art?
Hello?
Jesus Christ. Art, something's wrong with your phone here. You cannot hear
Hello,
me.
Clay?
Trying to get to you, Art. I don't know what to do here, William. His phone doesn't work. I've got the number up. It's the right number. But he can't hear me. And now I've lost. Now I've lost William here.
That's William.
All right, William. I don't know what's going on here. Art's phone is simply not working. I've been trying to get him on all during the show.
We're at that point.
What's that? William. Are you there, William? Now I can't hear William. I don't know what's going on here.
That's William.
Yeah, William, can you hear me? William, can you hear me?
Still no sound.
All right, hold on just a second here. All right, you know what? I'll start all over again. Be right back, folks. Testing.
Hello, welcome to Skype call testing service.
Testing,
After the
1,
beep,
2, 3.
Please record a message. Afterwards, your message will be played back to you.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Is this working now? Is this working now? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Is this working now? Is this working now? Okay.
If you are able to hear your own voice,
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we're reconnecting you now.
All right, we'll try this one more time, folks. Evidently, there was something wrong on my end here, and we will try to get William back up again. And Art, evidently, it was my arrow here, something on my Skype here, and that's
William.
All right, William. I think I've got you back now.
I can hear you now.
All right. Yeah, something was off on Skype, but I got it fixed here. And let me see if I can bring Art George back up. Art, now can you hear me? Let me see here. Art, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. My apologies to you. I've got William back on and I've got you back on. I had settings were off on Skype. I got hacked the other day and we're still trying to get everything back up, but everything's working now. And Art, if you'd like to go back and repeat what you were just, when we got disconnected there, what you were talking about. William's already given us an overview of this collaborative government that we're dealing with now. And I've also got another introspect, I believe, coming up here. It's
yep.
We've got a
that might be Renee.
Yeah, 7119.
I'm not sure if that's her number or not.
All right.
Good morning.
Good morning. Is this Renee?
This is Renee. Good morning from the West Coast.
Good morning, dear. We've had some technical problems, but we've got them all solved, and we're up on everybody's all the channels here, most of them, at any rate.
Good. Well, I'll burn some more medicine.
All right, William. Would you like to introduce Renee, and then you tell your auditors, whoever we've got a number of them up. Do you also have someone from the 406 area code calling in?
Yes, probably that would. I have an idea who that may be. That may be Arthur Westwolf. So,
all right.
Good morning, Renee.
We've got 406 area code up too. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Renee Smokey is a Washoe and out of Nevada, and has been doing extensive background in paralegal services and outreach into various community matters that involve women and children and so forth. And well, what she has accomplished is taken a life of work, and obviously is now an introspect auditor, dealing with some of these very critical matters that judges and lawyers control. And obviously a lot of echelon appointments are spinning off through the legal system. In other words, the bar is creating immunities for echelon appointments, people that can outlive the typical political term of office. And in the Washoe case, this is true, as well as all of the other tribe organizations, based on collaboration. The key of collaboration is very clear. It's under the radar. It is designed to preempt and supplant the public initiative and referendum process. Doesn't matter whether it's Indian country. It was brought into Indian country under the Bush Foundation plan of reinventing Indian government, absolutely a fiat government, meaning that they would have rebuilding native nations, which has nothing to do with what collaboration does. That's part of the image. That's the sophistry, the conversational hypnosis, the movement, and a basic aspect of collaboration is that you are brought in and franchised through the codes. The federal system was very effective in getting collaboration codified. That meant that, like under the Legacy Act in Oregon, various acts came in to cover the basis, meaning that you'd have to be accredited and certified and trained collaborator. And basically, we coined a phrase about this, a inner circle of participants sitting in a tilted round table of sinking fools. Collaboration relies on the Delphi cult techniques. You're on board or you're not. You're either on board and you go along with the game. As Artis said, you buy in. Renee, did you have any particular item you wanted to bring up?
Mainly, well, besides going everyone out there, the one thing, when Art was giving his overview also too, we do go back to 1934 and in the Reorganization Act and those years. Say we become IRA corporations, our tribes, the people, Washishu, Numu, Niue, Dine, all of those native people, you know, they're named for a reason. That's who they are, their identity. The corporate charters and stuff have assumed responsibilities, you know, they've assumed authorities, just like the United Nations Declaration, you know, and the United Nations itself, they're not an authority. So that I'm glad Art explains that declaration when he does, and William, you know, even you in between. Why? Because it's not just it's not a succession of power. It's not a proposition of power. It's not even an appointment of powers as much as it's going to be an assumed, you know, and everyone's going to run with it. Those kinds of things on top of what we deal with within our own structures of corporate government here, our AKA tribes, our tribal governments, community councils, our main tribal councils, and then you find our law. Now, the law being natural law, our language, our elders, the ones that have earned, and even those younger ones that have earned, their word is law. Our language speaks. Back in the home territories, I don't believe that people are educated even within because of that structure of being told, this is law, this is what you signed up for, like Art said, this is what's already been in place. It's always been like this. We'll just get a new council and they'll listen. We'll just have this, we'll have that, and we'll get someone else in here. You know, that's the cycle of abuse. Cycle of abuse isn't within our homes, it's when our homes are broken, it's when our language is broken, it's when our identity, you know, has been misused. One of the things as a woman in the law structure of our corporate government is, one, I always advocate, it's got to be the woman and the man, it's got to be the home, it's got to be togetherness, the language, how life is brought about. And after that fact, you know, everybody raises a child, you know, families help one another. In our corporate structured governments now, we don't have that. We can get an assistant, we'll show a social worker to show at your doorstep, you know, and assume authority, take control, and run with it. Therein lies a court clerk over there who gave her the paperwork to show up, who assumed authority, notified police, notified everybody, and ran with it. And he got the tribal police, probably the secretary first. She hears about this, you know, whether it's a gossip chain or not. Well, we all know within our home country it is. She runs with it. Everybody's assuming an authority under certain doctrines, and they're not Washo. They're not Numa Ayut. They're not. And we have the abilities, we have relatives in tribal nations that practice these ways, that still uphold that. And for one, why would our tribal judge have to be a state barred attorney? You know, I mean, Queen's gonna send her son over to do that one day? We don't know. But I know back in the day, in the early 70s, when a homemaker woman was the tribal judge, and stern woman, things were pretty solid. Out there in Indian country, when the attorneys come in first, when the attorneys are seated first, you know, therein lies the legislative process too. Should they be allowed in the legislative process? Is that part of what they are adopted to? Is that what they give their allegiance to? Because it sure ain't the people. And we see that with
It's not just retaliation. It's not with the things that people always hear about and I'll get back at you and family and generational trauma. The real trauma is actually coming with, coming to us from outside. Still to this day, I'm not talking about commodity foods now. I'm not talking about all those meth dealers, whether they ride bikes, quads, horses, trucks. I'm talking about that real so-called superpower and authority, which is not, I don't believe, the Creator's intention for all of us.
So,
that's a version. So
can I go ahead and say something, Renee?
Yes.
Go for it, Art. You're doing good.
Okay. When it comes down to the traditional people of this land, the Indian nations, our voice has been subdued, I guess, in the sense when they developed a tribal corporate tribe, the government would only do business with the tribal corporate tribe, which a lot of the people that work within this organization are not traditional people. They adopted the ways of the world, the ways of this new world, I guess you say. And in the first and final instances, the sovereign natural person are unnaturalized through the transformation of the sovereign political personal power holdings of an original being, real human, to being an artificial person, resident, citizen, tenant, being under control of a commonwealth or municipality, that which is or merely organized corporate property. Now, what Renee said was exactly true. That the corporate tribes are moving ahead or forward with us, but they're not speaking for the original people, speaking under original tongue. I was talking to a businessman the other day, and he's not a Native American, but he practiced shamanism, and he paid $10,000 to be the shaman. And I was talking to him about some of the original values of the original voice of this land, the traditional people. Yeah. And he was gathering information from me because he didn't have this information under the $10,000 fee that he paid to be a shaman, but yet he was practicing this healing practice.
He didn't get the memo.
And so what happened when I told him this information about traditional connection to the Creator, to the land, animal, air, and the water, he looked at me and he said, "That is very good information." He said, "But the Indian people are never going to be like they were in the past. They have to deal with the way things are today." And that's right along with the jihads of this country. They're moving ahead and moving forward with these plans and fighting over the commerce of this country, when the original people still maintain a responsibility to wanting to manage or take care of the animals and the air, water, land. Mm-hmm. But we're left on the outside, and that's where this document that William and I had compiled together, this identity theft document.
Sure.
It provides people with the ability. The identity theft and fraud technical brief is a stepping stone to a remedy, resolve of our situations, but more so a historical document that slows time down. As this world advances, the artificialization of the natural world encroaching on nature and the natural ways. We the people have that chance to study and learn its contents, to be able to make educated decisions, to be able to sit at the table, and to one day do something about our current situations with the natural practices, the natural laws instilled. That land, animal, air, and water human experience from the very beginning, which is love, life, and liberty. And that's what InfraSpec provides through this technical brief, is people with the knowledge, information, so that they would have knowledge to be able to deal with our current situations.
William, you were going to talk about jihads. Now, we're getting a lot of that from the mainstream media. They're trying to demonize the Muslims, trying to set us up for a war with the Muslims, trying to target Syria and Iran, and trying to make us believe, the American people believe, that it's the Muslims in these lands that are the dangerous ones, that are the threats to us. I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that. They've tried to demonize me for starting the militias, and the militia was nothing but the American people. And they tried to make us into the bad guys. Anybody that wanted to defend this Constitution, this Bill of Rights, which I think is more probably to the point than the Constitution. Could you touch on that? Could you talk about that?
Yes, the serial warfare campaigns obviously have got a long history all the way back to the Crusades, and then in the current times in America, the genocide operations against the indigenous people here, the various groups of people. There was always in the media, they use what we call the Rothschild model. That is, first you abstract it. You say words and terms that can be applied in so many ways that it causes confusion in the masses. And then in come the collaborating experts. And the judges and the lawyers are the gatekeepers on who gets to be an expert, whether it's a UN level global thing or whether it's local. And in this, the sophistry, the conversational hypnosis of jihad is to follow the Hegelian dialectic. In other words, you cause a false, a controlled opposition or a structured conflict. Now, the spin is always to the enemy of the state. The enemy of the state being, on a global sense, we have the war on terror. The war on terror mutated from a foreign engagement, which was dealt with in so many covert ways that the American people don't even know what war is anymore. They think it's to satisfy their needs and wants, their economic needs and wants. The serial warfare jihads are very important because even in a courtroom, the lawful jihad combines everything into decision makers. All of the serial warfare campaigns, including the genocide against the Native American people here, and I'm not talking about history, I'm talking about today, in the context of today. The jihads are in operation today, and the jihads, as I named, are the political, the legal, the scientific, and the religious. Now, in this dogma and doctrine at the global level to the local level, including specification of how indigenous people will be interoperable, is covered in the capstone doctrine and interoperability. These are insurgency manuals and so forth. The process psychology that is spoon-fed to the public is that, and this ranges from Vatican statements, the Pope's statements, the UN. It starts with, we will resolve the differences between all religions. Okay, let's just stop. There's an item. There's an issue. We're going to resolve the differences between all religions. Well, whose religion are you going to put in? Well, we know what it is. It's the Temple of Understanding at the UN. Now, to do this, difference has to be mutated into a dispute. The dispute is mutated further into a consensus blocker. And these are the words that artists brought up on your show before, such as oppositional defiance disorder, which is mutated further into the UN WHO manuals to obedience defiance disorder. So really, we're moving from difference. We don't regard the difference anymore. We're going to respect supervised rights as dictated by a lot of psychiatric manipulators. So then it moves into social disorder, and social order becomes violence, social violence, and social violence becomes criminality, and criminality becomes terror. Now, what I'm saying is, and what I'm pointing at, and pointing the finger at the people that do this, and we name the institutions, we name the professors, the academic institutions that are involved in this, basically it moves to a state of mind. You are guilty for a state of mind, and the latest evolution in the mutation in dysfunctional thought has become dangerous attitudes. Now, this goes into the doctrine of potentiality, and the Native American people experienced this in history and are experiencing it today, where in the Canadian example, the warrior societies are prohibited. So everybody who has any contrary opinion or contrary evidentiary fact has to be alienated. And what happens is they're subjugated to what the ADL invented, even working through the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, through Connors. And what happened is they developed this dogma and doctrine. And it's dogma and doctrine, and it says potentiality, prosecution, which we've labeled. We've labeled it potentiality prosecution. That means that you or any other dissenter who says, well, I disagree and I have a question, you're immediately labeled, listed as a possible consensus blocker. In Indian country, basically, the attitude is very, very arrogant in the leadership. There's no middle class. You have the arrogant and very well enfranchised non-Indians that are integrated in, and they're handlers of the Indian personalities. And then you have the underclasses, which are at a point of being subjugated to buyout. Now, Art brought this up, is very important. And in the Lakota, this demonstration, Montana, the states have got orders, they got their walking papers and backup of the UN. They're putting all of the services under the states. Now, the states operate according to Christian doctrine and so-called natural law. They say that, but they don't really mean it. They're under law arbitrary. And what's happening is they're telling the Native American people that you're finished. So now here we are in October, November. What happens every year on reservations in October, November? What happens in every community in America? The desperation sets in. Go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead, Renee.
Oh, I like when you talked about that, the corporate charters and stuff, and how that equals on down and stuff too. When you talk about the INGOs and stuff like that, the corporate organizations and things and stuff like that, they're the ones I'm talking about, who are their organized property. Their organized property coming in. And they're the ones who are assuming that, again, they're assuming some of that authority, like you said before, with the certain tribes. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. William, why does the states now? Why? UN, they're not an entity, they're not sovereign. The states aren't sovereign. They're all collective. So that's what I'd like, when you talk about that. And so mention who's collective, because some people don't realize, oh, well, we got a county board, we got, county commissioners, this, that. They don't realize how far that spectrum goes up, and then tribes, one organization has to deal with so much. And then when they talk to the states about that, aren't they talking about the full spectrum dominance? Isn't that how you explained it before?
Absolutely. One of the things that's really critical, and Renee has hit directly and said, okay, let's think about this word collectives. Collectives are a corporate, certainly an entity. The public-private partnership is really not a public-private. There's no such thing as a private corporation. That's part of the veil to keep people hiding, corporations hiding as NGOs, non-government organizations, which have mutated to private government organizations. In actuality, they're B corporations, and what they're doing is they're commingling under the IRS statutes and so forth. They're commingling the profit-making institutions with the non-profit. Now, in the collective, always the sovereign man and woman, the flesh and blood man and woman, are done away with, and they become, even if they're a volunteer, they become a person of the state. They're no longer a sovereign. So in this, the best ideas that have ever happened on the planet have always came from an individual. Consensus reality is like the UNIPCC thing, and Margaret Thatcher invented the IPCC under a collective trade-off system. In other words, as you get involved with participatory things, you end up way up at top where you're trading off people's lives on a super-regional basis. And basically the collective says, well, law is to the advantage of the majority, whoever that might be in the consensus at the table. And what happens is the creativeness of a community, indigenous, landed people, whatever, they are destroyed because they are no longer creative. Goal, value, priorities. The root word, the meaning of goal, is to go to jail. And you'll see it in the dogma and doctrine constantly, from capstone down to local agency things. The agency corporate partnership are stakeholders. Stakeholders own assets. And what they've done is they've moved into Indian country and they're plundering. This is the last go-around for Indian country. They've turned distribution settlement agreements into land claim settlement. Now, the Washoe signers of the indigenous sacred estate held in the land made it very clear. And they said, you don't get to come in here and make these assumptions of power. Now, what they're called is collusive and conclusive presumptions. And the collaborators are lawyers. Lawyers negotiate. Lawyers jump out of the judiciary and move into the executive. And that's what's going on in Indian country, and the plunder is big.
Yeah.
So there's one.
And also,
go ahead.
What needs to be understood here is when we're talking about the key authorities, we're talking about those that have given up the original title or the original understanding of natural law. These decision teams are made up of key authorities, supplant the communities that espouse policy making in advisory capacities. Indian community members that participate are constricted to functional specialization. Echelon appointments transcend the elected terms of office under the theory of stability. The echelon appointees ensure that external interests are severed or served regardless of administration transitions pertaining to elections. Change agentry is the personnel framework for fixing options, outcomes, while purging consensus blockers.
Arch just said it. We've all said it, and over again. All of the deep field people, auditors in Indian country, are becoming very persons of interest. And the reason is that they're articulating in a language. They now understand the sophistry, the conversational hypnosis, the conversation, the dialogue, and all of these things that were invented to put them in a state of behavior conformity. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move introspect forward. Clay, if you have callers, there's a few people I know wanted to call in. Do you have any callers that wanted to ask us questions?
I don't right now. I don't know if we've heard from the 406 area code yet. I brought him on a little while before. Who you got from the 406 area code? 1104.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can now.
Oh, good morning, Clay. Thank you. My name's Judd, and I am a free indigenous human being. And it's only because I keep putting focus to that and being aware of it and remembering that I am the choice maker. I can choose to be a warrior or I can choose to be a victim. I have 7 deployments, United States Air Force. Defended my country very happily, and I think you said something a little earlier about the Constitution not having an expiration.
That's right. I volunteered in 64. I volunteered for Vietnam in 64, and then I stopped. I helped stop the war in Vietnam because it was based on lies. And based on the drug business, not fighting communism. Go ahead, sir.
Yes.
Let me hear your
Welcome
story.
home, Clay, Welcome home, brother, from Vietnam.
Thank you. They tried to kill me before I got there, but again, there was no expiration date on that oath that I took at 17 years old.
Yes, sir. So, and, we talked earlier about being a cycle breaker. And that's what I'm also aware of, that I'm here to break cycles. Just because it is doesn't mean that's the way it's supposed to be. And the biggest thing that I can just offer, and I'm privileged to say, is that it's our time. It's our time to come together because we can stand beside each other. And it doesn't matter what color, what shape, what language, a free indigenous human being. But it's time now. And I learned from another medicine man. I'm Native American. I've been studying the earth ways for many years. And one grandfather from the Wasco tribe up in Oregon, he had this little saying, "Ta now." So it's right now, now. And I'm just here to do anything I can as a free indigenous human being and as an American. So I thank you all so very much, and I commend you for where you are and what's going on, and just, yes, having belief that we, the people, us, together, and it's only going to happen because we are together, and we can do it today. We're strong.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. A few years back, I asked myself, how did we make it 100 years ago? How did we make it 200 years ago? And I designed what I call the Liberty Village Prospect. I figured if we can grow our own food, generate our own power from the wind or the sun, everything that the Great Spirit gave us, then we don't need the government, we don't need the banksters for nothing. And I believe they tried to kill me over that. Well, guess what? They failed.
Haven't they been fighting since the beginning anyway? I mean, I remember in high school, my civic, even up when I got into high school, my later classes of civics, I was like, every time you give us another book every year, that's all they talk about, these wars and fighting amongst each other. I'm like, what the Indians do? Just sit back and watch all this happening? Because I know there's stories in Washoe. They just sat back and said, look at them people. There's, Paiute stories. What are they doing? Look at them. I mean, it seems like there's just been a lot of chaos. And that's, I think, is that some of the beginning and formation of that early governance stuff. I mean, where did that come from, William? You explained it very well when you mentioned it being ancient and historical coming in. Remember, Art, we talked about that when we talked about ancient government, the tribal ways, and what the families held, the head men held, the Washoes were territorial, the Paiutes were territorial, depending on your clan, what you ate. We had borders, and now young men like this guy are protecting our, the borders of the United States and stuff. But, there was a time when all the tribes and all the indigenous people along the way, we knew our borders. We knew when to keep out and to stay, and how, the grounds weren't moved so much. They were more fertile. And
we're the product. I believe we're the product of propaganda, of brainwashing, of mind control, and it's been going on as long as from the first time I turned on the television and watched the Cowboys and Indians, watched Roy Rogers and Gene Autry. They were programming us to be enemies. I think the American indigenous people were far more advanced on a spiritual level and even a material level than the Europeans that were sent over here. And right now, when you study history, the indigenous South Americans, the people that they built cities and pyramids and that we can't even compare with today. But we've been programmed to think of the American Indians as being savages. I think that's nothing but bullshit.
Renee brought up some very important questions. One is that where does this come from? In Infraspec, we deal with getting information to people, and it's got to be accurate, and it deals with model construction and so forth. There are several chapters and audit sheets that people can use to get at what really the problem is. But in behind it, way back in ancient times, are very clear. We understand the world history all the way back to the Druid civil organizations and all over the world, Africa, everything. We understand that. We comprehend what has been left out of the history. One of the very hardwired things that has happened in this country, as certainly stemming from Great Britain and others, was to create a remote interest and a direct interest. The remote interest went to covenants. It went to attributes of life. The direct interest went to aspects of society, agreements, contracts. Now what's happened is that the creator of the universe was way out there, and the mystery, to keep the jihad in place, the religious jihad in place, they had to have a gatekeeper. So they created the dogma and the doctrine. And those people are the same people that ran the Crusades and other Holocausts. As we get into the direct interest, we get into the doctrines that are used today in this country, certainly because people understand desperation and needing money. So they get into the direct interests of market-driven standards. And that's the whole UN apparatus, market-driven. The quality of life is considered a product, an article of commerce, and it's sold by the agency corporate partnership to the highest payer. Sometimes you get the extremes in tourism stuff where it's called opportunity realization. And this means that you're going to really make them pay to be happy. So as we get into that, to get that market-driven standard globally integrated, you have to have a value that everybody can live with. So the issue really isn't about education, because the statements made today are showing that indigenous people had knowledge, and you've said it, long before the insurgency of Europe into this continent. So that meant that you basically have values neutral. We can't have any values. The reason that we have so many perversions of the letter of the law is that law just becomes that which is to the advantage of the group present, of the decision makers. Notice that they're no longer statesmen, they're decision makers. And these are, I'm not talking about theory and conspiracy, I'm talking about manuals and exhibits exceeding 35,000 exhibits. The technical brief that deals with the overarching world situation here, right down to local, is 787-page brief. The identity brief is at 410, and we're trying to hold back on some of the things and develop other instruments and ways of getting people to comprehend, not understand. Understand is masonry, Freemasonry. Comprehend means what we say, the sum of all things is the truth. Now, in the cases, in the deep field cases, all we see is judges and lawyers getting more forceful, using the royal court system. That means that they will dictate what the truth is from the bench. The courtroom has nothing to do with the truth. The truth was a virtue given to protect liberty, individual sovereignty, from tyranny, genocide, austerity, Holocaust, atrocity, and so forth. And in America, people can't even, they don't even know themselves, and they spend a lot of time in group trying to find out what's wrong with themselves. And the psychologists, the psychiatric programmers are keeping people, as I said, functionally specialized. You don't get to make up life, you get to participate according to your supervised rights, and that's what they've done to women in America. They put them under supervised rights and recruit them in through the third wave and other corporate feminist operations that actually will tell Indian women, we'll give you a tax credit if you sterilize yourself. Or if you want to sell a baby, we can get $65,000 for a DNA matrix sale.
Let me ask you, William, and the auditors here. We are being set up for civil war again, I believe. We've got we've got three factions coming in. We've got the so-called illegals, and we've got the Muslims. What is the Muslim? We're being told about the jihads of the Muslims, and I do not believe that every Muslim is our enemy. There are places like the Philippines and other countries overseas that people that I know have been there and said it's safer than walking down the streets in New York. What is the estimation here? You know, we hear about jihads from the Muslims, and again, I believe this is all being created. What's your opinions on that?
Well, you can go back, and I don't have an opinion on it. I can tell you that the Crusades had a pretty good history now revealed. But one of the things very important is understanding weaponized immigration. There's a long history of weaponized immigration, pre-biblical times. And what happens is that today the weaponized immigration, and I'm going to let have Art and Renee address this weaponized immigration in Indian country, because it's a perfect case demonstration of how it happens with open enrollment. And it is embarrassing that the United States government would have, you can go into Indian country and you can get a Hispanic speaking line. You can go anywhere and you get a government line that has a Spanish translator on it. But you don't have that for Washoe. You don't have it for Lakota. You don't have it in a lot of places. Those are indigenous people. They're the first people. They were here, not particularly first in geological history, but at least in the contemporary history known today. So what we have is weaponized immigration. What is that? Weaponized immigration is what Clinton, the Hillary, and Bill, and Obama, and these people are doing. They're doing weaponized immigration. They're deep immigration. To do this, they had to affect the so-called amnesty and all this thing, so they brought it in. Now, the pathetic excuse was, well, their country's having problems, and they have to come here, and they're going to enhance jobs and all this. So you have a behind this is the corporate agency partnership. Really, what they're practicing is cartelization or global. They're setting up these world working permits, green visas, all of these things. So they're deep immigrating. Now they know why they're doing it. This will lower the standard to moderate living needs. And there will still be an echelon appointment, a high class, and then a smaller, very small middle class, and then a large lower class, which is under what they call sumptuary law. Sumptuary law is where you have the high class bring in the low class. Now, the fact of the matter is that most of the immigrants coming in will leave in time because they're coming here for the bounty, for the plunder, for the benefits. And in this country, it is a atrocity to see landed immigrant illegal trespassing, illegal entries come in and get better benefits than are afforded to Native Americans or indigenous people or Indian people. Now that's going on. Now the tribal philosophy in the IRA system is more bodies, more money. The state's philosophy is more bodies, more money. So you have all of these accommodations for these immigrants, and we have delineated this in detail in the identity theft as well as the intrusions profiling under status differentials. Renee, you want to pick this up, or Art?
I would like to. Now I understand, and it's even more clearer when we heard one of our grandmothers, the 13 grandmothers, the beautiful women. Remember, she talked about the leaky canoe. I understand that now. So I see this, like when I talk about that generational trauma now. Now I see what they've been taught and brought into, like I was talking before. The other thing I like, William, when you talk about the collaboration, governance, and stuff like that too, that's what the states and that's what, the so-called governing Obama and the rest that they're handing on down and creating all these money, issues for us, right? Just let's create the problem and, we'll manage it as we go along. It's more numbers. It's more, we put it together now. But, what's not being respected is, one, that sacred estate that we, declaration that we all signed, one before the United Nations, is one, our attributes of life are such higher standards, Ours as indigenous people here are more abundant within us, the individuals, like that young man was saying, I'm an indigenous, person. Well, indigenous is fine, but, our own virtues, mean something and everything. Our covenants, we create them, like you said, our own sacred estate, we create that, our language, our law, everything, even our own commerce, right? But everything, even like you said now, with all that land transaction and the buyback program and everything, they're going, and putting that out there, going against the private individual people, and they're going against, like we say, an elder in the family saying, no, this ain't going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. Those, more, what you call it, morals and values for people to understand maybe, those when they're dictated down through generations, through the language, through the families, the clans and stuff, that's highest, attainable standards on our part. Why could we have them? It's the truth. There's that truth again. Put the truth. There's nothing, the sum of all things is the truth. But that is ignored. That's ignored because you've got the community councils or the councils and our own governance working with who? The Department of Interior, the Department of Interior, United States government. Where are they finding the money to do all this anyways? And when they talk about
surrendering your rights, you know, because it's so fractionated. We can tell you right now it's so fractionated. Why is it so fractionated? We got people who aren't washo on our roles in our company, controlling things, working on historical documents, working on historical for families. You know, those infiltrations are happening. So not just infiltration of people coming across the borders, you know, in millions or thousands and stuff and all this others. Of course it is, but you know, there's always something behind it, and that what is a chattel, you know, what do they call chattel? The money behind it, William, because like you said, let's create a problem right now. Why it's more heads, it's more, you know, create this and distribute here a little bit, and we'll manage it as it goes along.
All right, let me take a call here, William, from Brian Magner. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Good morning, Brian.
Been looking forward to getting you on, Brian.
Yeah. Morning.
What is the subject matter? I hear a lot of complaining.
Well, it's good. So, with an accent like that, your experience obviously has been with Russians. So, the impetus is that there are people who said that the Indian people are really more like the Russians, and that the Russian system should be the one that works in Indian reservations. And there's actually college level dissertations on this that I have as exhibits. So the Russian system apparently was said to be communist. So what's your experience with the Russian personalities that maybe have an attitude towards what's going on the globe?
It's let me inject something in here, Brian. I have speculated that after being under communism for 100 years and losing millions, if not a billion, people to these murderers, that maybe the Russians and the Chinese have kind of woke up and doing things like forming BRICS and backing Syria against criminals like the United States. Tell me, Brian, what's your opinion?
Well, my opinion is this: everyone in this country has made everything confusing, very complex. And Russia is not complex. And what I've experienced here in this country is that the people are stupid. When will they wake up? It's not complex.
I have to agree with you. The elite believe that they're needed because we're too stupid to rule ourselves, and I'm inclined to agree with that.
Well, this country, I love this country, but it's soft. People are soft. We base everything on these sports, these sports players and the soccer moms. And in my country, that would never happen. They don't count. You work, you know. It's very, very discouraging to see people that can't comprehend other than to take their little kiddies down to school and drop them off and have social hour and all of this stuff. And one of the predators in your life here in this country is the real estate people. I see this, the real estate people. This would never happen in your country, see. They market your future, they market your children's future, and it's just aggravating to me to watch how this whole matrix works in every community.
Well, they've kind of targeted me my whole life. It seems that the American people always had this fetish about guys that wore leather, or rode Harleys for that matter.
Hey, Clay.
Yes, sir.
I have leather sheets on my bed.
You have what? Leather sheets?
I have leather sheets on my bed.
Good.
But Hey, Clay?
Yes,
I
sir.
want to say something to Brian there.
Go ahead.
Brian, you asked about what the subject matter is. I believe that the identity theft document that William has that we had worked on and providing as education for people is to really get people to understand why we're in the position we're in today, and some of the things you say are true. And what I see the subject matter here is that the Indian nations at one time, such as my people here, Washoe, is in the 1700s. We got the information that these people were coming to our land, and that was before anybody was here yet, and just my people. And our ways were so highly formed that we didn't need cell phones, we didn't need cars, we didn't need all those things to help us to operate. We had a very intricate system of living here, trade, and a form of unity that everybody was taken care of. There was no homeless and there was no hungry. Now, our old people knew that these people were coming to our land and they were going to be looking for the heart of the nation, the spirit of our people and how we operated. And so our people in the 1700s put our medicine to sleep. And so when the people came here, the Christian attitude is getting rid of the heart of the Indian people and calling us less than human, and that they could kill us and wipe us out and take our land, that when we went to sleep, we were going to wake up one day when everybody thought they had gotten rid of us, and they're taking over this land, and like they are now. They're taking it over and they're all fighting each other over this free land, this free commerce, this free oil, this free gas, all this free land that they're making money on now. Now, the Indian nations, especially within my people here that I've noticed, is there's younger generations that have been born with the truth, and we've been born with the heart, and we've been trying to organize ourselves, or at least get together and have counsel, but the confusion is induced by the jihads of capitalism, of ignorance or confusion. And so this way, the original people, the original leadership wants to rise back up, but there's no bringing it together, because we're starting off from nothing. We're coming back as from the spirit. And so this is where the education of this document gives people the information that makes it less confusing to understand why they're doing what they're doing. People are fighting over this country, and they're leaving the original people out. Like, we'll never, ever be...
You have been flooded with every imaginable people from the world. You are flooded right now. Yes, and so your voice has been squelched. It's all a big plan. But you must unite with the people who occupy this land in a way to make it work for your people. If you don't, you stand alone, and the world doesn't care. The world does not care.
I'd like to ask and even offer like a prayer to, when you say that the world doesn't care, and we don't care about some of the world's problems either, and the people, their own land can't take care of their problems, or they can't. They're being disguised, and they're being taught the same ugly way, and that globalization is not right. It's more private. It's not the individuals. It's not the tribes, the clans back in their own home territory. The Native Americans have this belief, this spirit that's in us, this power that's waking up. They're very, very positive. And, no matter who lives on these lands, no matter who's buying it, no matter who's realtoring it, no matter who's controlling it and fighting over it, we still have that belief that we are caretakers, we are originals. And back home, I think in Russia, I'm glad that you feel good and know good about your country, and you feel good. You probably missed it, And I wish people of all over, they all go back home stand on your land and feel that same way. And realize when y'all fighting over this land and you're forgetting about the Native Americans, the original people, when you're just dismissing us and forgetting about it, it is still a reality. That's still historical. It's still happening. It is still happening. And when the United States of America goes to war, when those corporate, people go and start and, promulgate all these different kinds of wars, whether it's financial, social, criminal, all these different kinds of wars and stuff, and the Native Americans aren't thought about, we do care about our places. We do care what happens. But we also, reach out to the people on the road saying, you're indigenous over here, our tribes, our clans here. That's not what we want. We're not in that same leaky canoe as though, they'll bombard the Bush families and all of them. We're not in the same leaky canoe as all of those decision makers, stakeholders, and those, even, why? Because they're globalized now. Look at all the, everything.
They are globalized. There are only
people everywhere. The fear of healthy foods everywhere. The fear of clean water. The fear of our children growing up. Security. It's everywhere now. But as indigenous people, like I said, I know coming from Washoe Paiute country, Shoshone country, and out here in the West Coast and stuff. I pray for a lot of people because hopefully that goes east and everything settles and goes good because, like Art said, we still have that spirit that's waking up, and we know about those ancient ways that are being retaught again. Well, we know they're in your families too, and in your people too, back in your homelands too. So when people fight, and those governments fight, and those corporations start this kind of stuff, we don't have no say or nothing. That it is a scary life.
Don't ever say fairness. Life is not fair, but your fight is the white people's fight too. This is corporate world now, right? Right? It's everyone's fight, and we just don't know it. We just don't know. We can't put faces on the demon.
Al Gore, I recognize Al Gore's face.
That is good one. I do too.
I recognize his face, and then he's up there for global change and this and that. It's like climate change.
Well, that's interesting. You guys talking about the all of us are in the same predicament here. I think about the tribal leadership we have here when we speak up on behalf of the land, air, and water. Renee and I have done this document with our people here of Sacred Estates that our tribal leaders here, they say that we don't have no say here because we do not work for the tribal corporation, so we have no say. So they threaten the agencies that we try to do business with. And when we look at it, our leadership turns around and tells us we have no say in this, but yet what they do is they go over and shake the hand with the devil, and they say, "Well, we can't do it both ways. We can do it this way."
I see that too. I understand. Yes, they are players. So what is the difference between the intrusion of white people in this continent here and what your people are doing by shaking hands with them? What does that say? What does that say for you?
That what that says for me is that the spirit of our people are rising out of that annihilation period to where our spirit now is getting stronger to where people need to be educated and not sit back and say, well, I don't get involved, or I don't have nothing to do with that. I wasn't here when that happened, and I'm here now.
Yes. Well, you have to have a starting point for these issues, and if it starts in small group, with a small group, you start in small group. Our lives on a daily basis are very small. And that's the way it should be. It should not, this global stuff is maybe for trade, but for people's daily lives, it is very simple.
Exactly. Yes, that's where I'm speaking of, because the original people, my people, when we come back and rise back out of these ashes, like I say, the connection that we have to our nature, our natural way, the creator, the spirit of life, land, animal, air, water, are included in our decision making. So when we sit in council in our areas, the intrusions that are on us is the people that are foreign managers now. They don't include nature the same way. Their idea is everything's a commodity. And so our position as natural people and natural law is we don't exclude the nature and natural way out of our decision making. And that's what's rising up through the information.
The resources, they exploit the earth just as they do in education with your children. I see that here. Yes?
Yes.
The exploitation of children, their minds and their spirits are swept away.
I'd like to ask Art and William. I admire the indigenous Americans. I admire the culture they had for thousands of years before the Europeans came here. What can we do to work together and restore the kind of civilization that we had before England and these other banksters, or whatever you want to call them, the elite, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. They're criminals, they're evil, and you know, if you're religious, you could identify them as Satanists. What can we do? The average person, and I know that almost everybody out there that listens to the show, well, yeah, things are bad, but what can I do? What can I do? What can one person do? I'm just one person. I put that question to you. I don't want to fight with Russia. I want to work with the Russians. I want to work with the Russian people. They had a civilization, and they were always our friends. The Russians were never our enemies. No, never. Until the communists took over, until the Bolsheviks took over, killed off 100 million Russians, probably quite Christian Russians. What can we do?
You want to go ahead and start that, William?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, lead, Art.
Okay. Well, I think it this way. It all has to do with our intentions. We don't have the right to tell anybody else what they can and can't do. But we do have the right to use our will to face the truth of the living. And as a man, our job is to fight tyranny so that we can protect our children, so we can protect our land, our air, our water, our animal, our families. And by the men not being able to stand together and share information together and be called, such as the Patriot Act says, if 4 Indian men stand together, that they can be considered insurgents or terrorists. You know, there's laws that are being made so that we can't come together. And so what's real simple is if men really did stand together and took a look at where we are in this life, we can find the solutions that are really inevitable for us to heal. But we have to stand together knowing that we're not bad people. This world isn't a dark place.
Yes, sir.
It's only dark because we've allowed it to be.
All right, I'm here. Somebody call my name?
Yeah, then, okay, Art's obviously set what should be the focus of what people should be doing, and has a lot to do with regard. Certainly, given what has happened to Native American people in America, I would say that forgiveness is certainly a big part of it. From auditor directorate point of view, it's we've set up a system where we can go in and detect the dysfunctions in systems and the behaviors of people, whether they're mistakes, errors, or whether they're collusive presumptions. The people are not the problem. The people creating the systems are manufacturing problems. In other words, they manufacture a problem and then they control the solution to their benefit, to their beneficiaries. The people ask us all the time, what can we do? One of the first things to do is to comprehend what's really in behind all of these controlled oppositions and these structured conflicts, and we've done that. We've set up an audit system where people can actually look at what's going on around them in their environment, and they can do that. A lot of people don't use it. The media certainly has lost its integrity, and they're struggling to get public trust again. All the media, they're struggling to get public trust where there is none. And the reason is that the public at large, and this is not my opinion, this is observations, doesn't have a sound set of values. They're struggling in desperation. In Indian country in October and November will face desperation again. The money will go fast. The casino culture isn't making it. The casino culture is like a casino predatory economy. The globalization themes aren't going to solve anything. The bigger the better is not going to solve it. They talk local, but really what they're talking about is a framing the debate. And the debate is always framed at the dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic level. And that means we will abstract, we'll confuse, and we'll send in our experts. And that's what's been going on. So we in introspect, we've stepped outside of the box, and it's very obvious in identifying the jihads of politicians, law, science, and religion. Those are the jihads. All these manufactured serial conflicts with get the other guy are all frauds. The media has stepped way into sophistry, certainly propaganda. So what we've done is we've set up a system where people can actually go on introspect.org and they can run that survey, and they can actually answer questions in there. It's comprehensive, but they're going to have to learn. People have to learn. Our problem isn't that people are ignorant per se. It's that they're being misinformed, disinformed, and so forth. But really, the real problem is no sense of attributes of life, as Renee spoke to, and what are values. What are the virtues? The first virtue is truth. That's a virtue, but it's not there because we use words like opinion to get rid of the truth. What is your opinion? I don't have an opinion. The deep field auditors go in, they make observations, and they use a system to detect what the dysfunction is. Then they come back and tell the clients, here's what we see. And then now we know what our problem is. You don't go to the doctor and say, well, I've got a cold, but really it's cancer, or really it's cancer, it's not a cold, and all the box. Keep them thinking in the box. You can't cure this, you can't finish that. You have to have the government protect you from the terrorists. What has happened in that deception is we now know who the terrorists are. We take the definition of terrorism, corporate terrorism, mutual terrorism, synthetic terrorism, and we identify it. And it leads to someone's name, title, and address. And so we come back to that word value. Not goal, we come back to the word value. And right now, the colleges and universities are re-educating and reorienting young people. Even at the college level, they're recruiting very young people, and they're imprinting a new global value to them, and they call it a value. It's not really a value. It's not even a principle. It's a practice. It's a prerogative. And so you have this small box in a predatory economy. We call it the blue flat tarp. You put everybody on the blue flat tarp, and if they step off it, they're in trouble. So when you go in and look at the blue flat tarp, InfraSpec jumped off the tarp. We got off the blue flat tarp. We don't operate there. We observe it. We have what we're doing at InfraSpec. It's natural. It's going forward. And we do not brag. We do not advertise per se. We just simply say, we're doing these things. You do what you're going to do. We're not going to tell you what to do, but we are going to keep doing what we do. And that's a very big interest to the collaborators. The collaborators don't like people stepping outside of the matrix because they've got a small box that they've created. And when you step out of that, you'll end up talking things about the golden spiral. You start talking about the DNA matrix. What's really going on in this world? Let's talk about those particulars and who's in behind it. What is the dogma and doctrine way before the Crusades? Go ahead.
Right. Also, William, it's interesting when you're saying that, because all the things that you're saying, it reminds me of my auditor position. And then sometimes when I talk, I always remind myself that I'm talking as a natural human being here from this land, and the things that I believe and things that I see spiritually are so true and so real. But then I think, well, on the auditor's position, looking at it, I think, wow, we've done a lot with the time that we've had to provide as much information and much clarity to the problem that we have to face, that the InfraSpec position, if people were to want us to clarify more or help educate them more on what it is we've done, that we provide those educational services that are really is the move forward towards a healing process, so that the natural ways or the natural world can begin its a growth. You know, it's like the seed being planted. You know, the InfraSpec approach is actually planting the seed, and now it's up to the people to learn more about that through that process. And when Clay says, what can he do? Well, he can read the document, or he can learn more about this by knowing what we've done and how people can learn from that and know how to identify with us the concerns we have and how to approach it to deal with it.
May I say something?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have to go here, but I want to say you need to find the essence of man. Ignorance, to me, by definition, is an excuse to be stupid, as I said before. You need to educate all people and find true leaders. Otherwise, you're just drifting. I want to thank you for letting me participate.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
This is exactly what I do this radio show for, to get this input, to educate people, to make you aware that you do have choices here. You don't have to submit to tyranny. You don't have to allow them to do this to you. We can stand up. We can say no more. And this is what I've tried to do since I watched them murder 17 little children and their families at Waco. I swore I would never sit back and watch something like that happen again on TV without trying to do something. That's what we're doing here, folks. Now, you can help me. You can go to freeamerican.com see the articles, see the latest news, and we got links to all of these shows. You need to tell people about this show. Don't just expect them to find it on the internet. Tell them. You right-click on William Blair's name or Art George's name or Clay Douglas on Wednesday, November 4th, and it'll give you the link to this show. You can share this information with your friends, with your family, and with your neighbors. They don't want you to, so you'll have somebody there standing on the side going, well, you know, Clay Douglas, he's just a radical. They'll make up anything they can to try to turn your attention. Nobody has done that on this show. They tried to give you the correct information and tried to give you ways to take action. Now it's up to you.
Well said, Clay. Thank you very much for having us on.
Well, it's my pleasure, and the links will be up here. And I did get a paragraph that I've added to the website about William Blair's expressions of universal principles while maintaining an auditor's stance is acknowledged. The sum of all things is the truth. 2005, Blair. The immutable universal principle will withstand institutional, normative, rationale, objectification, sophistry, deception, and indolence. The author has established himself as the guest has established himself as a well-reasoned, insightful vanguard for intelligibility, compassion, and regard. These attributes of personality qualify him as an auditor's auditor. The overacting virtues of liberty are not secular concepts nor judicially invented laws. The author has posted, scripted many statements with, I remain at liberty to make such observations with gratitude. And I can identify with that. So that's what I do the show for. This is why I have a number of guests. And I appreciate all of their observations. They're based on my guests have experienced this. How they deal with it is their business. But I try to provide a platform that they can share that with you. And Art George, William Blair, Brian Magner, and the others on this call, I really appreciate the efforts that you're putting out. And I'd like to have you back on real soon. We'll do this on a regular basis. Great Spirit bless you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Maybe everybody.
We'll be talking. Work gets it just gets ongoing, and we're there now.
All right.
Well said, Art, and good prayers out there for everybody, and Brian, and like you said, the indigenous people, everybody.
Well, it's just this show should be a good example that we can work together. We can take advantage of thousands of years of history and experience on both our parts. It's I'm proud to be a Texan, but I don't hate anybody from Louisiana or New Mexico or Mississippi.
For the listeners that are interested, they can go to the introspect.org site and then look at the documents and references there. The believability rating is a very important one to understand the deception, understand the conversational hypnosis that's going on, and even in the expressions, the syntax, and how the voice is commanded. You can use a good example of NPR and listen to the narrators as they soft sell the serial conflicts with a very important inflection in their voice pattern. And it's kind of like, I call it an intellectual goose step at the end of the sentence or at the end of the phrase. And it's a very important indicator as to their orientation and their mind control, thought reform, values brainwashing that is going on in the institutions. If you want to find where the tyranny is being engineered and designed, go to any educational institution. Go there and you'll see that these collaborators are serious and have moved into a very hardwired status, and they're going to have to be dealt with. And their responsibility is going to finally rest on the judges and the lawyers that have participated in this very heinous, collusive, very covert idea, because it appeals to the people, especially people who want depopulation, and one of the things that earmarks their mentality is in talking with them, they always want the other person to die in order to save the world. And that's a matter of record in our files.
It's also written in stone. It's written in stone. A little place called the Georgia Guidestones. Folks, they want to reduce the world's population, but I don't see any of them volunteering.
We've, in a very jaded humor, I've actually offered agreements for them that we could deal with that. But the biggest thing is that we have to look right at the values, the virtues, and then the education is certainly, people learn a lot in their lives on this planet, but we have to understand what the laws of learning are. The laws of learning are very set and they're very, very regarding, but we're coming back to where we're having to take on an institutional educational system that's based on the Prussian models, and that had nothing to do with making sure that everybody raises their consciousness. It has to do with programming them to follow a matrix.
All right, we're out of time. We're out of time, guys. And appreciated, William, if you'll tell Ronnie that I'd like to have her on next week to talk about health-related matters. God bless you all. Thank you. FreeAmerican.com. Shop.freeamerican. You can get my books, you can get my videos, and you can share this radio show with anybody and everybody that you care about. God bless you all. Thank you.
To all of our relations.
Thank you, Clay.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.